All right, let's dive into something pretty interesting today. Character assassination.
Yeah.
You shared some excerpts from a book called Soul in the Driver's Seat.
Hmm.
And it seems to offer a pretty, like a really unique perspective on this.
It is. It's quite
Like,
fascinating.
we all know it happens. It's a very
I'll bet.
human thing to do, right? But the book frames it in a really interesting way.
Yeah, it's structured a little differently than kind of your average self-help book.
Okay.
Think of it more as like a daily reflection guide, and with a new theme every month.
Okay, so it's kind of giving you those little nuggets
Yeah,
to work with.
daily prompts and things
Yeah.
to think about.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And what's the ultimate aim? Like, where is it trying to lead us?
Well, the aim is to help people become less ego-driven and more what they call soul-dominant. And they say you can achieve this transformation in just a year.
Just a year, huh?
That's what they say.
That's ambitious.
It is ambitious.
But I guess that's the whole point of these kinds of
Yeah.
books, right?
Yeah.
Is to give you that
To give you a framework
and some tools.
and some hope.
Exactly.
So less ego, more soul. But before we get there, let's just break down like what exactly character assassination means,
Sure.
according to this book, because I think people have an idea of what it is, but I'm
Right.
curious how they specifically define it.
Yeah, well, they define it as this inherent tendency of the mind
Okay.
to classify everything as good or bad.
Uh-huh.
And then, so when someone breaks those rules,
Yeah.
that's when the character assassination comes in.
It's like we're putting a label on them.
Like a judgment.
Yeah, yeah.
A big scarlet letter.
That scarlet letter, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody wants that.
Nobody wants.
That's a really powerful way to put it, right?
Right. And let's face it, I mean, we've all probably been on both sides of this.
Absolutely.
I mean, we've done it, we've had it done to us.
It's a human experience.
It's part of life.
Hmm.
But the book really seems to want us to dig into the consequences of this
Yeah.
judgment.
Right. The consequence.
It's not just a fleeting thought like, oh, I don't like what that person did.
Right.
There's like this lasting
Impact that
Yeah.
it can have.
and this like buildup of blame and shame.
Mm-hmm.
Like, even if it's not even outwardly expressed,
Hi. Even if it's internalized, it can still have.
it can still eat away at you.
It can affect your well-being, your relationship, your health.
It's crazy how
Yeah.
powerful this stuff can be.
That is.
And, think back to like a time when you were maybe unfairly judged by someone.
Yeah.
It's like that,
That sticks with you.
it sticks with you, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's hard to shake off.
Yeah, it's hard to let go of.
And I think that's one of the things that the book really gets at is like, it's not just about the action.
Yeah.
It's about the
Consequences.
lasting impact.
Yeah.
But what I find interesting is it doesn't just stop at assigning blame.
Right.
It's not like pointing fingers.
No, it's not about blame. It's about,
It actually gives these daily prompts. They call them steps to authenticity,
okay,
where it encourages us to look at our own roles.
to reflect.
Yeah, to self-reflect on like how we might be contributing to this cycle of judgment.
I like that.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's like turning the mirror inward a little bit
Yeah, yeah.
and saying, okay, how am I part of this?
Mm-hmm.
So some of the reflections, and I thought these were interesting.
Mm.
Let's see, there's one from May that says, how have you blamed yourself for something recently?
Oh,
It's a simple question,
it is.
but it's like, whoa.
It makes you think.
And then there's another one. If gossip is character assassination, when was the last time you participated?
Ooh, that one's good.
That one hit me hard, I have to admit.
Yeah.
Because it's like, yeah, we all gossip, we all talk about people,
Right.
but is that just another form of...
Is that contributing to the problem?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's another one. Oh, this is a good one, May 15th. Is criticism ever warranted?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
That's a debate in itself.
That is,
Right.
yeah.
Like, where do we draw the line
Right,
between constructive criticism
right.
and just tearing someone down?
Yeah,
And that's where things get even more interesting, right?
yeah,
Because the book doesn't just focus on that individual blame. It wants us to zoom out
yeah,
and look at the bigger picture.
yeah. The broader...
Right. And it asks, like, is this just an inevitable part of being human?
Right.
Is this just what we do?
Mm-hmm.
Or can we evolve beyond this?
Right. Can we as a society change?
As a society?
Yeah,
That's a
yeah.
big question. And it's really challenging because we see character assassination everywhere.
Oh, it's everywhere.
I mean, you can't open social media without seeing it.
Yeah, social media, politics.
Politics, it's just
part of...
It's like it's become so ingrained in how we
Yeah, and how we communicate.
communicate. And I think it was interesting. There was this quote in the book that I thought was really powerful.
Yeah.
It said, if if you stop quietly condoning this behavior, you may lose friends, but can make new ones of a higher quality.
Oh, wow.
And it really struck me because it's like,
It's a challenge.
it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's saying, look, if you really want to live by this,
Yeah.
if you really want to
Take a stand.
take a stand against this,
Yeah.
you might have to reevaluate
Yeah, who you're surrounding yourself
your
with.
relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me think, like, is it worth it?
Is it worth it to make that change?
Yeah. Is it worth it to maybe lose some of those people in your life?
Yeah, that's a really powerful question.
But then again, if you're surrounding yourself with people who are constantly engaging in this,
Right. If that's the norm, what does that say about the environment that you're in?
the environment
Yeah.
you're creating
Yeah,
for
exactly.
yourself, and that's what I think the book is really trying to get at,
It's challenging us to step outside of that.
to look at that bigger picture
Yeah.
and say, okay, if I want to create a different kind of world,
Hmm.
what do I need to change about myself
And who I'm with.
and who I'm surrounding myself with?
Yeah.
So it's moving from that ego-driven,
To soul dominant.
and that's what I'm curious about. What does that actually look like in practice?
Yeah. How do we make that shift?
How do we actually embody that
Mhm.
in a world that
That seems to reward the opposite.
the ego,
Yeah.
the ego-driven behavior?
Yeah. How do we do that?
It's a great question. And I think before we dive into that,
Mm.
I think it's really important to understand the emotional toll of character assassination.
Oh, yeah.
Like, not just on an individual level, but like, how does that play out on a societal level?
Right.
The book touches on it, but I'd love to really unpack that.
Yeah, I think that's a crucial aspect to explore.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we often focus on like the actions, like the words themselves, but what about the emotional fallout from that?
Mhm.
The scars that get left behind.
Yeah, the book mentions how blame and shame affect our like health and happiness,
Right?
but it doesn't really get into the specifics of how that actually plays out
Yeah.
in our lives
Right.
and in society.
Like think about it this way, like when someone's character is assassinated,
Uh-huh.
it can lead to feelings of like isolation, worthlessness, even self-doubt. It chips away at their confidence,
Yeah.
makes them question their own perceptions. Am I wrong?
Yeah, am I seeing things clearly?
And imagine that happening on a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
It can really erode trust within communities,
Uh-huh.
makes it harder to address collective challenges.
Yeah, you don't feel safe
Right.
to speak up.
Exactly.
And it's not always about the direct criticism, right?
Right.
It's the whispers,
It's the subtle things.
rumors.
Yeah, the judgments passed behind closed doors.
Like that feeling of not belonging
Yeah.
can be so
Oh,
damaging.
absolutely. And it can create this sense of unease.
Yeah.
Like it's not safe to be yourself,
Mm-hmm.
which can lead to people suppressing their true thoughts and feelings.
Oh, yeah.
Hindering open dialogue.
And you don't want to rock the boat.
Exactly. And that's essential for a healthy society.
Right. Like being able to have these
Open and honest conversations.
of an honest
Yeah. Making
conversation.
people feel safe.
Share their ideas.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to get groupthink.
Right. You're not going to get the creative problem solving.
Yeah. And it's almost like a form of social bullying, isn't it?
It is. It's like a subtle form of bullying.
But it's hard to pinpoint.
Right.
It's not like someone's coming up to you,
Yeah. It's not overt,
shoving you.
but the impact is undeniable.
Yeah. And that's what makes it so insidious.
Yes, because it's harder to call out.
Right.
You start questioning yourself like, am I overreacting?
Yeah.
Am I being too sensitive?
Yeah. Am I making a big deal out of nothing?
Exactly. And that can create a culture of silence
Oh, absolutely.
where people are afraid to speak up.
Yeah. For fear of becoming a target themselves,
Exactly.
which is what happened to me. I mean, I've been in situations like that where it's just like
Yeah.
you start questioning your own sanity. Like, wait, am
Am I imagining things?
I making this up?
Yeah.
But the truth is, those little things, those microaggressions, they
Yeah.
add up and they have a real impact.
On individuals and communities.
Yeah. It's like death by 1,000 cuts.
Exactly. Each one might seem insignificant
Yeah.
on its own, but together they can really inflict serious damage
Yeah. And that's what the book is really challenging us to think about, to be more mindful of
of the potential harm.
the little things.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And to consider, like, why are we doing this in the first place?
Right. What are the motivations?
Like, is it always malicious?
Yeah.
Is it always coming from a place of like, I want to hurt this person?
Right. Is it intentional? Or is it maybe sometimes?
Is it sometimes a way to control others?
Like a defense mechanism.
Yeah, maybe a way to protect our own beliefs
Right.
by discrediting anyone who disagrees.
So it's like we're trying to make ourselves feel better by putting other people down,
It's possible.
to make ourselves feel less threatened,
Right. And that's why self-awareness is so important.
so we can recognize it.
Yeah, to understand our own motivation.
And then start to make more conscious choices.
So, okay, we've talked about the definition,
Right.
the impact, the motivation.
The consequences.
But let's shift gears a little bit and talk about solutions.
Okay.
It's one thing to analyze the problem,
Yeah.
but what can we actually do about it
Right. What are the actionable steps?
on both an individual and a societal level?
That's the big question.
Yeah. How do we move from awareness to action?
Well, the book suggests that the first step is awareness,
Okay.
becoming more conscious of our own judgments.
So noticing when we're doing it.
Yeah, catching ourselves in the act.
Okay, but what happens then?
Right.
How do we stop ourselves from doing it again?
Yeah. How do we shift from being part of the problem to part of the solution?
Right.
That's where those daily reflections come in.
Okay.
Those steps to authenticity. They're designed to help us cultivate a more mindful approach,
Okay.
to train ourselves to pause before we judge.
It's like building a new habit.
Exactly, replacing that automatic responsive judgment with a more conscious and compassionate way of thinking. It's not just about individual change.
Right.
The book also challenges us to think about the broader societal implications.
It affects everyone.
Right. It contributes to division and conflict.
Yeah, I mean, look at what's happening in politics.
Exactly. It's used to demonize entire groups of people,
Right.
leading to prejudice and discrimination.
It's a poison.
Yeah, it erodes trust
It really does.
and makes it harder to have productive conversations.
So it's like this vicious cycle.
It is.
How do we even begin to address something so
Deeply rooted.
yeah,
It's a big question.
it feels overwhelming?
It kind of circles back to this idea of choosing love over fear. You know,
Yeah.
like recognizing that we're all interconnected and that how we treat each other matters.
Yeah.
Like it has a ripple effect.
Yeah, but how does that translate into actually combating something like character assassination?
Right.
It feels like a pretty daunting task.
It does. But remember, the book wants us to move from that ego-driven
Yeah.
to soul-dominant behavior.
Okay.
So maybe that's the key.
Mhm.
You know, maybe by focusing on our own personal growth,
Yeah.
our own journey toward authenticity and compassion,
Yeah.
that we can then inspire others.
Okay, so it's like leading by example.
In a way, yeah.
But what does it actually mean to be soul dominant
Right.
in a world that seems to reward the opposite?
Yeah. Well, the book defines soul dominant as acting from a place of like empathy, compassion, and connection to something bigger than ourselves.
Okay.
It's about recognizing that our worth isn't tied to external validation
Right.
or achievements, but comes from within.
That sounds pretty idealistic
It does.
and challenging.
It is challenging.
Because we live in a world that's all about competition
Right.
and comparison.
Yeah. Proving ourselves.
Proving ourselves
So
to
just-
others.
It's hard to imagine just stepping outside of that.
It is, the book acknowledges that,
Okay.
but it emphasizes that true fulfillment doesn't come from feeding our egos.
Okay.
It comes from aligning with our soul's purpose.
So it's not about rejecting the ego completely.
Right.
It's about finding that balance.
Exactly.
Recognizing that healthy self-esteem and striving for excellence, those aren't bad things.
They're not inherently bad.
But they shouldn't come at the expense of others.
Right. It's about shifting our motivation.
Yeah.
Instead of seeking external validation, we can ask ourselves, what contributions can I make? How can I use my strengths to serve something larger than myself?
Okay, so it's about focusing on our own growth and letting go of the need to control others
Exactly.
or judge them. But how do we actually cultivate those qualities
Right.
in ourselves and in society? Well, the book talks about the daily reflections as a tool.
Okay.
They provide a framework for self-reflection
Yeah.
and help us kind of integrate these concepts into our daily lives.
So it's like a practice.
It is. It's a practice
The awareness
Yeah.
of catching ourselves.
of making different choices.
choosing kindness. And the more we do that, the more it becomes a habit.
And hopefully it starts to spread.
It creates that ripple effect.
Exactly.
And that brings us back to that quote,
Right.
you know, about losing friends but making new ones of a higher quality.
It's about choosing to surround ourselves with people who inspire us to
Yeah.
be our best selves.
People who lift us up,
Exactly.
not tear us down.
And I think this deep dive has been really thought-provoking.
Me too.
It's given me a lot to think about.
It's a book that definitely stays with you.
Yeah, for sure.
And for everyone listening, we would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, what resonated with you?
What are your own experiences with character assassination?
Right.
What steps can we take to create a more compassionate world?
Yeah, individually and collectively.
It's a big question,
It is.
but an important one.
It is.
And remember, even small changes
can make a difference. So let's choose love over fear, compassion over judgment,
Beautifully said.
and work together to create a world where character assassination is no longer the norm.
Okay, and on that note,
Yeah.
we'll wrap up this deep dive.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for listening.